Okay, so in this second part, we are going to take a look at dependency injection, what it is and how it actually helps you when it comes to building Angular in a very performant way and in also a way that is easy to maintain down the line. So let's start with a very simple analogy that hopefully will help you understand what dependency injection is, and then after that, we are going to take a look at how we can implement it in code as well. Okay, let's get started. What I want you to do now is to forget about code. Forget about code, forget about Angular, just for a minute. We'll get back to that. I want you to now focus on this image. We have Saul here. Saul is a businessman and he wants to start a company. However, unfortunately for Saul, he does not have the skills required. Like he doesn't have front-end skills, he doesn't have back-end skills, he doesn't have social media skills. Fortunately for Saul, he has a circle of friends who are good at least one of these things. And they are good to the point that they can do that which they do best in a very, very productive way. So here we have Jack, web designer, we have Bill, and so forth. You can see all of them. However, as you see here for Anne unfortunately is on and off. She's not available all the time. However, she can refer Faith to Soul and make the two work together and implement the designs that are needed. So with that understanding, we see that it's possible for Saul to do that which he cannot do on his own by connecting. And you can think of this connection as by invoking or by even making a phone call, by writing an email. So that was a quick analogy. Now let's translate this back to Angular and see how we can apply the same logic. All right. On the second image, we have simply renamed these characters. So for Soul, we give him the name businessman component. As we saw, we can have app component, and we said we can have different types of components that can do different types of things. Then each of Soul's friend, we have actually appended to them a service. So you have Jack, who is an expert web designer service, and so forth, all the way to Anne. Okay, so now, as we said, like for some reason, if Anne is not available, she can refer to Faith. As you see, we have simply introduced some concepts of Angular. So a component can rely on external help, and this external help is something that they can do, but it can be done in a much better way with the service. Okay, and these services, they can be shareable. So for example, Jack doesn't need to simply know Soul. Okay, Jack may have another friend, and then the other friend can require the web designer services from Jack, and so forth. So ideally what happens is this: think of a component as someone who knows a guy, who knows another guy, who knows another guy that can do something that the component itself cannot do. So it's something like turtles all the way up or down, depending on your perspective. So a classical example for that is this: Soul needs a Figma design, but unfortunately, Anne is not there. So Anne knows Faith. As you see, like the chain goes on. So dependency injection is that, like reusability. It actually emphasizes on reusability and makes it so easy for you to build scalable application in Angular. I hope that helped you understand what dependency injection is in the context of Angular. And you'll find the term dependency injection not only in Angular, but also in other frameworks, for example, and other languages. For example, in Kotlin language, there's also dependency injection and so forth and so forth. Okay, so now let's now start looking at our code and how we can implement dependency injection. Okay, so this is our app component. Let's create a service here that helps us. Maybe let's assume a calculator. Yeah, like we call it class calculator service. And then this calculator service, it can do addition. For example, you give it a addition a, and it's an integer, I mean a number, and also b is a number, and then it returns a number. Okay, return a plus b. Okay. And then let's say calculator, and then let's say maybe here subtract, and also here we say maybe multiply. Okay, and then right here we have a complex calculation. Okay, for this complex calculation, we can use the assumption that it can even make calls externally and use data from other places. But in our case, let's just pass in a parameter number and then b. number also. Okay, and then return a, maybe mod b. Okay, all right. So for you to be able to use this, so how can we use this in our app component? Okay, there are a couple of ways to use it, but in Angular, you begin by saying add injectable. Okay, so marking this calculator service as an injectable, there are a couple of ways to actually say on what scope it will be. So for us, we want to make it maybe globally available. So we say provided in root. Okay, so there are other options, as you can see, like any root and platform, and then we can simply say like in root. Okay, so it's available everywhere. So this class, how can we now start using it? All we need to do is to come in our app component and we simply say there are two ways. So I'll show you the first way and the second way. The first way, if you want to make this instance of the class like available in the HTML as well, we need to simply give it a public access. Okay, so public access modifier. So you can say public, and then we paste the name, and then normally this is what's done. Like you give it a name familiar to the class, in this case the service. Okay, and then you can do this inject and then calculator service. So why is it complaining? Because we need to import inject from Angular, and inject is what makes it possible for you to now introduce, think of it as an introduction of the calculator service into the scope of our component. You remember where we had an error like for forms, and then we needed to introduce it? It's the same thing. So you need to introduce calculator service into the scope of app component. Okay, so the other option that you can use is this. In the constructor, okay, you can simply do this. Instead of having this here, we have it here, public, the same way, the same pattern, calculator service. Now here, we don't need to use inject, we simply do that. Okay, so you see there are two ways. The first way is this one using inject, the other one is in the constructor. So which is better? Actually, it depends on what you are doing, but for me, I normally prefer this approach, and the reason is this. For some reason, like should I be having this app component or whatever component I'll be working with, should it maybe be extending other components? I'll not need to actually touch the constructor. Everything will be initialized here. So going on from now, we will be using the inject approach. Okay. All right. So how can we now use the constructor service in the component? Okay, so let's maybe have hypothetical results, like we say public result is a number, and then we can give it like 0 for now. Then this result, we want to display it on the UI, okay? And then as a H2, right here, do that, okay? Then we save it. Now, I don't want us to complicate this, so let's just do this. We say that when I click submit title, this one right here, we can simply add, like we can simply do this result, it will be this calculator service. Okay, then we add two numbers, maybe 7 and 7. Okay, so those are the two numbers that we want to add, but notice it's complaining because we need to actually call the appropriate method. Now you remember when we said that like dependency injection helps in doing something in a very good way. So all you need to do in this case is decide what good way do you want it to do. Like, do you want it to do addition, complex calculation, multiply, and so forth? Let's just use addition for now. We save it, and then let's see what happens on our browser. Okay, so this is our browser. So if I click submit, as you have said, all we need to see is 14 and so forth. As you can see, like it makes your life very easy. So you don't need to remember anything. Like your component doesn't need to actually have that logic. And that means that it's going to be easy for you to even change it without touching your component code. All it needs to do is to simply call all these other like methods that are provided by the service. All right. Okay, let's test maybe with maybe complex like that. I believe we should see 0, yeah, because it's 7 mod 7. So let's say 7 mod 17, we see what we get. So we see 7. It's just that. Okay, and then you may be wondering something like, is it a must for us to have like this service right here? No. the best recommended way is to create, yeah, you can create like extra files for the services so that they are actually isolated and like fully like the component will be agnostic of them. It will not even know anything about the services, and that will make it easy for your components because you can have so many components. It will make it easy for them to share the service logic. So here, for example, you can simply create a new file, and we call this file maybe calculator service that way. Then all we need to do is to simply cut everything here. We cut this. Okay, we see it starts complaining because like the service is no longer in the scope. Okay, so we come here and then we paste this. Okay, then we need to fix the imports like that, and then you notice it's actually even also it's not complaining, but nobody will know about this calculator service, so we need to export it. Okay, once you export it, it appears like that. And now that makes it possible for us to import it here. Okay. And then we simply import it and everything should work as it was working before. So we submit, we see 7 because we are actually using the complex calculation. Okay. All right. So that's just it about dependency injection. This topic that you've just covered is very important. So you can think of dependency injection as something that makes it easy for you to build reusable Angular logic. Okay, and then always remember to clean up like that which you don't need. So in this case, like this calculator service, it's actually going to provide also the injection token. So what is an injection token? An injection token is what identifies that service to Angular in the dependency tree, whereby like a component will see, okay, I need a calculator service. How is it identified? In the list of all available services, and in this case, injection tokens are going to be used to find the appropriate service to actually use here. Okay, so if you hover on this, like you see, it's a token, yeah, dependency that should be injected. All right, okay. Okay, I think that's it. So that was a very quick guide on what dependency injection is, and we will see it as we continue. That's why we needed to tackle it right now because it's really something that can really make your life easy. I cannot insist that enough. So please make sure that you understand what dependency injection is, how to use it, familiarize yourself with it. Okay, all right. So the next thing we are going to touch on is Angular signals. This is also very important and it's something that as an Angular engineer, you should familiarize yourself with it as much as possible because you will realize that things like NGRX, they also have signals in them. So stay tuned for the next session. Always remember what you have learned in this session about dependency injection. Teach someone so that you can understand it better and you can also grow together with your friends. All right. Thank you.